obvious suit.
Feeling Good by Oliver Perrin. Wade felt good. It wasn't often that he felt good. Usually, he felt like shit. He worked out a lot. It didn't make him feel better, though he was certainly bigger and stronger. If you wanted to take a look, all you had to do was compare the pictures Tina had taken of him a year ago to the one she took last month. There he was, standing with his lungs inflated, tensing his biceps with his fists in tight balls. If you compared the two, it was obvious he had gained weight. He had gained muscle mass. He had learned in his reading that since the old days, with the increase in protein consumption, the average size of humans had been increasing steadily. He was just another example. But most of the time, he still felt like shit. Last week, Tina had said it was the last time she was going to sit around while he lifted weights and drank beer. She had better things to do. That was fine with him. Whenever he was the one trying to break things off, everything got really difficult. He was tired of her anyway. If she wanted to go, it was fine by him. This way, she could feel like she's the one wearing the pants, and maybe for once, she would stay gone. She had a nose too long for his tastes. When he'd started seeing that stripper, she must have smelled the pussy on him. He'd gone and taken the precaution of only writing down her number, not her name, and keeping it hidden in his wallet. Tina went through his wallet early one Sunday morning when he was sleeping. She'd waited for him to leave, and then she had called. When Wade was done checking on his father that day, he'd stopped off at Naughty's, a little combination laundromat and bar he liked to drink in. The people there knew him. He liked that. He'd gone up to the bar and ordered a beer. He hadn't seen any single women, so he'd just put his back to the aisle and leaned into the bar. The bartender had brought him his change. It was Tyler. Tyler was an all right guy. "How's it going, Wade?" "Living and breathing. What's up?" "Your old lady came in here right after my shift started. She was talking to Wanda, and she looked pissed." "Pissed how?" "Well, Lisa came up to me after she left and said Tina was looking for you." "Shit." "Yeah. Lisa says she saw a big screwdriver in Tina's purse. Apparently, she thinks you're out with some other girl. Said she'd find you." It had been a wonderful scene when he made it home. He'd walked past her and picked up a book. He just tried to read. He was reading a book on Rommel, the desert fox. Why had Rommel ended up in such awful circumstances? He was such a brilliant man. Hitler had made him commit suicide. Suicide probably wasn't so bad. It might be the only way out in certain circumstances. Tina kept screaming at him, how he was always fucking around, how he was a useless piece of shit. "That's what you are, a fucking useless piece of shit." "Tina, please." "I called that whore. I called your whore. She said she was sorry. She said she didn't know you had a girlfriend. She said you lied to her too. You lie to everyone. Why don't you say something, you piece of shit? Read your little army books. Read your history books. All you do is lift weights and drink beer. That's what you are. You're a useless piece of shit." "What were you doing going into my wallet?" "How stupid do you think I am?" "I ain't stupid. You're stupid. She gets her fucking manicure and her pedicure at the same place I do. I would have found out anyway. How stupid do you think I am?" Now she was gone. He felt better. He wasn't working in the ink plant anymore. He was still young. He didn't need that shit. He had his whole life in front of him. Wade decided to lift some weights. Had to kill some time before evening traffic thinned out. He pulled out all of the concrete and metal weights he had. Pulled out his stanchions and his belt. He put on the Allman Brothers. It felt good. He began to feel even better. 3 sets of 10 for each exercise. Afterwards, he wanted to eat. It was important to have a balanced diet. Enough complex protein, enough carbohydrates, fiber, the whole thing. You had to eat well. Eating well was important. He went into his tiny bathroom for a shower. He finished and toweled off, shaved. This was going to be a good night. He was still young. He was strong. Every day he ate right and gained more muscle mass. In the kitchen, he had 2 bowls of cornflakes, no sugar. Then he scrambled up 5 eggs and ate them with 4 slices of toast. Wheat toast, no white bread. He wanted more milk. He opened up the refrigerator and drank the milk straight from the jug. Milk was really good for you. It gave you strong bones and teeth. He drank a gallon of milk every day. He sat down and looked at his apartment. Tina had taken her shit. Now all that was left in the living room were his bookshelves with his history books, his strategy and tactics, his science fiction. There was a broken color TV and a box of records next to his stereo. Then there were the weights. It had taken him about a month to get them all together. He'd purchased them used out of classified ads in the newspaper. Problem was, they were almost all concrete weights, so he was getting to the point where he couldn't get enough weight onto the bar. One day he would get iron weights. He would get iron weights and he would get a power rack. A power rack. He decided to go for a drink. Beer was good for you. In Germany, they knew that. In Germany, beer wasn't classified as a drink. In Germany, they called beer something like liquid nourishment. He thought that was about the most sensible thing he had ever heard of. When he felt good, Wade liked to get into his Cutlass and drive slowly down to Ted's Tavern. He hadn't done it in a long time, but that was because he'd been feeling like shit. He got into his car and headed south on the highway. Ted's was a dirty place and it wasn't safe, but Wade had friends there. They knew him. They liked to sit around and drink. None of them really worked. He took the highway down to Boulevard and cut over to Memorial. Ted's was right near the old cemetery. It was almost in Cabbagetown. Usually there were crack whores hanging out along the side of the building just out of sight of passing police on the main road. They weren't there. His headlights swept across a blank wall as he pulled up. It was probably too cold for them. Wade had started coming down to Ted's 2 years ago. His brother had told him about the place. Most of the guys were petty criminals, and to be honest, they were kind of stupid. Wade liked to go there, though. He liked their stories. There was something real about them. Bars in better neighborhoods just pissed him off. He couldn't drink in them, and he didn't feel like drinking at home every day. Besides, beer was cheap, and pool was only 75 cents a game. He parked his car close in beside the wall and got out on the passenger side. It was getting really chilly outside. When Napoleon marched towards Moscow, it was probably colder. He had read, quote, "The Russian winter proved to be the deciding factor." The building was a converted gas station. The sign out front said, "Miller." He pushed in the door and went inside. Kyle was there with his brother Terry. Wade saw them both over in a booth next to the pool table. Kyle stood up and grinned. He was big, naturally big. "Wade, goddamn, shit." "Yeah, what's up, man? What's going on?" "Hell if I know. Ha ha ha." Wade sat down next to Kyle, facing the door just visible over Terry's shoulder. Kyle was big. It was hard to sit in the booth with him. He had these big hands, really big hands. He stuck one out for Wade to shake. A weather-beaten paw. Wade shook it. Wade worked out as much as he could, but he never seemed to get any muscle mass in his hands. Kyle must have been born with it. And he worked on cars a lot. "Damn, good to see you, Wade. Where you been, man?" "Me and Tina got a place up on Buford Highway. Cherry Heights. It's all right. Tina split." Terry looked across the nicked and greasy tabletop at Wade. "Who's Tina? I don't know no Tina." "You don't know Wade either, you dumb fuck. You're too fucked up to know your own brother." "I know you, Kyle." Terry had been in and out of mental institutions. He would get really wired up on cheap crystal meth and grab people and look them dead in the eyes and tell them about how he could see the ovens and all of the bodies. No one liked him much. Kyle kind of looked after him. Terry started staring at his thumb. There was a big Band-Aid on it with a blue stain. Kyle turned back to Wade. He made a really serious face. "Got any weed?" "No, call my brother." "Give me a quarter. What's his number again?" Wade fished in his pocket and gave him a quarter. Told him the number. Wade got up to let him out of the booth and he exited. Wade sat back down across from Terry and watched him. Terry probably didn't read much. That always puzzled Wade. If he didn't read, where the hell did he get all those fucked up stories from? Terry began to stare at the light over the pool table. Then he bit his lower lip and threw his eyes around before they came to rest on one of the men playing pool. He He kept chewing his lower lip. The guy at the pool table had a shaved head and wore a pair of overalls with paint spots all over him. Terry suddenly became very intent, hunching forward, rocking slightly and staring at the man's back. Wade began to get a bad feeling. He hoped that Kyle would come back soon. Terry stood up slowly and began to creep towards the pool table. Nobody paid attention to Terry. He pulled a lock blade from his jeans and opened it. You could hear it over the music. Click. He moved forward again, holding the blade next to his hip. Kyle came in from outside. His nose was red from the cold. Someone tore the receiver off the damn phone. Terry, what the fuck are you doing? The conversation in the place stopped suddenly. Terry hung his head like a kicked dog and just stood there. His voice was tiny. You want for me to kill him, Kyle? Sit down. Sit the fuck down. Terry sat down. Conversation started again. Nobody had known what was happening except Wade and Kyle, or if they knew, they didn't care. Everyone looked at Terry for a moment and then went back to drinking. Wade ordered himself a beer. Beer was nutritious. The guy with the shaved head lost his pool game and walked over to Wade. Wade Forrest! Holy shit! You got fucking big, man! Kyle looked at Wade and asked him if he knew this guy. Wade said yes. It was an old friend of his from way back, Mike. He wasn't a bad guy. He had this problem always hanging out with assholes. Mike was one of those kids who always had tricks played on him by his friends in high school. Elementary school, maybe. Mike hadn't spent much time in high school. What's with the haircut, Mike? Skins, man. Skin heads? Yeah, man. Wade laughed. Kyle laughed too. Mike looked embarrassed. He changed the subject, standing there holding his pool stick. So how's your brother? How's your father? Bo's all right. He's working at a mobile station up on Beeford Highway. My dad's hanging in there. The neighbors want him out because of all the shit in the backyard. Yeah, I remember. Actually, it had gotten worse since Mike had seen it last years ago. Wade's father was a World War II veteran who had come back from his Navy service and settled in Atlanta back when Atlanta had no traffic problems and the city government was almost entirely white. He'd become stranger as the years went by, and he'd started to hoard things. He'd found a nice house in a decent part of town right after he got out of the service, and he'd been living there a long time. By one of those twists of real estate fate, the neighborhood had steadily increased in value, and these days the cheapest houses in the area went for more than $1 million. The neighbors didn't like Old Man Forrest. He drove the property values down all by himself. That wasn't taking into account all of the cats he kept. Cat shit everywhere, and the backyard of his house looked like a scrap heap. An old Lincoln Continental with suicide doors on rotted out tires, piles of sun-bleached plastic lawn furniture, 2 or 3 rusted refrigerators, several hundred meters of old chain-link fence, scores of boxes under the trees covered with tarps, sheetrock buckets filled with old screws and nails, old bicycle frames, tree stumps that had been dug up and brought home, heaps of moldy styrofoam coolers long ago broken into fragments, a couple of outdoor nativity scenes, shattered toilet bowls, and about 1,000 other species of unidentifiable shit. Old Man Forrest was stuck. He minded his own business, and he expected the same. Of all the worldviews that occasionally rise up in modern life to remind you that folks had once had a different way of looking at things, there wasn't one that his neighbors found more odious. He started collecting rocks. Rocks? Yeah, last week he called up me and Bo and asked us to come help him get this really big stone he liked from his old place out in Conyers. A rock? Yeah. Like a really big-ass rock. His new thing is rocks. They're all over the dining room table, all over the dresser, the bathroom sink. You mean like collectible rocks? Nah, just rocks, man. I mean, the one he wanted us to help him move into town must have weighed 300 or 400 pounds. It took all 3 of us to put it up into the truck. Fucking huge, man. Kyle and Terry were just looking at the two of them. Terry scratched his nose. Mike put away his pool stick and got his beer. Terry tried to be helpful. Maybe they have fossils in them. Maybe they got those crystals inside, and you crack them like eggs, only you don't know it. Nah, I know my old man. They're just rocks. He wouldn't collect them otherwise. Kyle got up and started a game of pool with someone he knew. Terry began talking about this TV show where people brought their pets on and they did tricks. Wade cut in, addressing Mike, who had slid in next to him in the booth. "So where you been, man? What you been up to?" "Well, I got out of prison about 2 months ago. I was in there for 2 years. "Damn. What for?" "Minor shit, man, minor. I'm on probation now." Wade let it drop. He finished his drink. Terry was still talking. Mike drained his glass. "Listen, man, you got a car?" "Yeah, I bought Bo's Cutlass." "Sweet. I'm staying with some guys out near Stone Mountain, but it's not that far. I tell you what, man, if you give me a ride home, I'll give you $5 for gas money." "No problem, man. I got nothing to do." Mike went to get his coat. Wade waved goodbye to Kyle. Terry didn't say anything. He was just staring at the wall. Outside it was cold as hell. Nobody on the street. Wade quickly checked his car to make sure none of the windows had been broken. Then he turned to Mike. "Hey, let's take a look at the graveyard, man. Let's get a couple of beers and go sit by the graveyard." "It's cold, man. Why don't we have a beer in the car? Your car has heat, right?" "There's no hurry, man. You'll be all right. I just want to sit and look over the wall at the graveyard. I don't get out enough. I feel good tonight." Mike needed the ride, so he reluctantly said all right. They went to the market next to Ted's and bought a couple quarts from the Korean family that ran the place. They crossed the street and sat down on a bench near an empty parking lot next to the wall of the graveyard. They unscrewed the caps on their beers and started drinking. Wade felt good. The cold air made him feel alive. There was no smell of ink and solvent. There was no smell of Tina's nail polish. There was no smell of cat shit. He could just see over the brick wall to where the crosses and memorials were sticking up out of the dirt. He turned to Mike. "You know Margaret Mitchell's buried there." "Who's that?" "You know, Gone with the Wind." "Oh, yeah. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn." "Yeah, but that's from the movie." "What?" "It was a book first." "Oh, yeah, I know that." They drank for a while. Wade lit a cigarette. He gave one to Mike. From out near the street, a guy walked up to them. He was hunched down in his plaid coat to stay warm and walked up slowly. Wade watched him carefully. He was really skinny with an unkempt, rust-colored beard. When he got up close, Wade could see that the hand holding a bottle of wine was tattooed. The man looked at Wade, stared at him for a second. Wade got ready to jump up. "Is that Bo's brother? Is that Bo's brother? What's your name again?" "Who are you?" "You're Bo's brother, ain't you?" "I'm Randall. They call me Red." "Yeah, man. I remember you now." Randall sat down uninvited on the bench next to Mike. Mike looked uncomfortable. Randall used to do business with Bo. Wade had always figured he was kind of a scumbag. He smelled of rancid sweat and cheap wine. Thunderbird, Night Train, something like that. "Ooh, I tell you, I just got out of a shitload of trouble." Mike grunted and stood up, removing the barrier between Randall and Wade. Randall patted Wade on the shoulder and slid in closer as Mike stood there and smoked beneath the parking lot lights. Randall had bad breath. "I was just walking along, and up comes this little faggot in a Mercedes, and he says, 'Where are you going?'" "No shit." "Yeah, and then he says, 'You want to go for a ride?' So I said, 'Sure,' and I got in with him. He wanted me to suck him off, but I made him stop the car, and I kicked his ass and put him in the trunk. He was a priest, and I put his ass in the trunk." "Damn." "Yeah, and then I'm driving off, and up behind me comes this cop car." "Oh, shit." "Yeah, and this cop pulls me over and asks me where I got this nice car, and I told him it was mine. And he asked to see my insurance and license and all that, and I ain't got it. And then you know what he says?" "No." He says, "You got anything in the trunk?" And I just went, "Oh, hell." "Well, what happened?" Randall paused for a moment and spit on the ground before continuing. "They had me in jail for a while." "So what are you doing out?" "Since he was a priest and he wanted me to suck him off and all, they dropped the charges so there wouldn't be no publicity scandal. But I took his watch and he came up after the court business and asked me could he have it back." "Yeah?" "Well, shit, I gave it to him." Mike wanted to go. They finished their beers. Wade got up and shook hands with Randall and gave him a couple of cigarettes. They walked back across the street and got into Wade's car. Wade let the engine warm up for a long time before he pulled out. They could see Randall. He was sitting on the bench with his back to the graveyard watching the empty parking lot. Your engine is like your body, Mike. If you let it warm up, it runs better and it lasts longer. Like warming up before working out. Let's just go, man. I'm cold. Never rush, Mike. They always try to make me rush at the plant, and I hate that shit. Then they try to make you think you always have to drive fast, always hurrying, trying to get you to eat in your car. I drive an American car. I drive to enjoy the process of driving. Wade slipped it out of park and put his foot to the gas, pulling out onto the street. He took I-20 east and leaned back into his seat, using the right lane and just barely making 55 miles per hour. He turned on the radio. He looked over at Mike. So who are you living with? I'm living with Bart, with Old Glory Skins. We got our own place. Old Glory Skins? What the hell is that? Working class, man. Blue collar. Strength of the United States. Working man. None of these fucking immigrants and niggers. Wait a minute, man. Part of my family is Irish, and they were immigrants. That's different, man. Wade didn't care. It was all bullshit. Mike was an idiot. He was always hanging out with assholes. Anyone stupid enough to hang out with assholes was bound to start repeating what they said. Hannibal was an asshole, and that's why he lost to Scipio Africanus. He remembered the sentence, quote, Carthage was razed to the ground. Not one stone remained standing atop another, end quote. But maybe that was later. They turned off the highway and rode in silence for about 10 minutes. Mike directed him through a series of turns into a quiet little neighborhood. This is the one. Stop here, just past the mailbox. Here? Yeah, thanks, man. Listen, it's good to see you again, man. Can I get that $5? I really need the money for gas. Oh, yeah. Listen, I'll have to go inside and get it, but these guys have probably been drinking, so you should probably pull up and wait around the corner. What? When they drink, they want to fight, man. And if they see your car out here, they're going to come out here and start shit. I'll wait here. I'm not kidding, Wade. Come on, man. I won't fuck you around. I'll come right back out. Just pull around the corner. You want me to go and hide from a bunch of kids with shaved heads? Whatever, man. I'll be right back. Mike got out of the car. Wade watched him walk up to the house. Wade got out of the car and lit a cigarette. He had muscle mass. Who were these fucking skinheads anyway? Mike opened the door of the house and went in. Wade began to kick at the right front tire. The door of the house swung wide and a stream of guys came running out. They ran down the sidewalk and straight up to Wade at his car. They were shouting. 2 of them were holding baseball bats. Must have been 5 or 6 of them total. The one in front had lots of pimples. He was short and had really thick, dark eyebrows. His head was shaved. Hey, motherfucker! Who the fuck are you, fuckface, huh? All the others were shouting too. He saw Mike at the back. Mike was trying to tell them to cool it. They weren't listening. Wade backed up against the car and dropped his cigarette. He was stunned. His breath came in little white puffs in the cold air. Kick his ass, Bart! Knock his fucking head in, man! Take it easy, man. He's my friend. Cool out, man. Wade just stood there staring at them. He couldn't say anything. It was like it was all a dream, like he wasn't there. They looked like actors. They were all talking at once. He's fucking scared, man. You're nothing but a piece of shit, you chicken shit motherfucker. They started to mill about. No one hit him. Mike kind of got in next to him and calmed them down. They shouted some more. Then they started to get cold. A couple of them were barefoot. The ones in the back said to fuck this guy and go back inside. Eventually, they calmed down. They straggled back inside. You're a fucking pussy, man. Fucking pussy. You pussy. Mike came up to him as they disappeared inside. Wade just looked at him. Mike was an actor too. He stood there. He kept looking over his shoulder as he spoke. Listen, man, I'm sorry. I tried to tell you. Listen, Bart won't give me the money he owes me, man. I don't have it. I tried to tell you. Wade got into the car and drove off. In the rearview mirror, he saw Mike walk back inside. He made it all the way to the expressway before he started getting angry. It started small as he replayed the scene in his mind over and over again. He got Irish angry like his dad did sometimes. Each time he saw the faces, he started to get more and more pissed off. He had to stop. He drove along until he found a Waffle House and stopped the car. He went inside and sat down. The waitress came up to him. She had red hair, and it looked like she hadn't washed it in a long time. What can I get for you, honey? A glass of milk. She brought him the milk and he sat there sipping it, getting angrier and angrier. The images kept repeating in his mind. He saw that dark, zit-covered little face. He remembered talking to his father. They had been sitting out in the backyard after moving the stone out of the truck. Bo was inside getting a glass of water. His father was a very big man, but bent by age. He was old enough to be a grandfather. Wade's mom and dad hadn't started having kids until they were in their late 40s. Old man Forrest had a bicycle tire in his hands. He'd kept turning it around and around, flipping and bending it. He seemed indifferent to the cold. He'd looked at Wade from beneath his shaggy white eyebrows. "Wade, that bastard next door said he's going to poison my cats. He said he was going to poison my cats. So I just went and told him. I told him if he did, he'd regret it. I don't know what the hell has gotten into these people. He's always shouting at his wife, and I can hear him throwing things around sometimes. They haven't done a damn thing but give me trouble since they moved in here 5 years ago. I've been here 45 years. They're just assholes, Dad. It's more than that. What are you talking about? He's just pissed off because they shit on him at work. He takes it out on you and your cats. Hell, his wife probably ain't fucking him, and I don't blame her. Don't you say fucking to me. It ain't just work. There's hardly a buffalo left. We killed almost all of them. Shot them out of trains and left them there rotting. They're no longer passenger pigeons. Hell, you have to look hard to find a snake to bite you. Now you take India, for instance. In India, they still have tigers and poisonous snakes. Ever seen a tiger here? Nobody likes killing like we do. The Hindus and Muslims kill if they get all worked up, but it doesn't possess them in the same kind of particular way it does us. We'll kill it just because it's there. And we get organized about it. We'll grind the bones for fertilizer and pull the gold from the teeth, run them through the mill like chicken carcasses. That one next door, he's a poor specimen. He wouldn't last long, but he's just looking for an excuse to kill something. I'll put a bullet in him if he comes around. I won't think twice, I tell you. I will put a bullet in him. Now, Bo's back, so let's get that rock up out of the driveway. Wade drank his milk. He began to grind his teeth. He went into the bathroom and looked at himself. His face was white, except for the red nose and cheeks. His left eyelid kept twitching. He paid for his drink and he left. He kept getting more and more angry. It didn't seem to be stopping. He got back on the highway as the images played over and over in his mind like an endless loop. He drove fast, the quick flashes of the highway lights skipping across his dashboard. He drove to his father's house. Old man Forrest was asleep. He went down into the basement where his father kept all sorts of things that were left over from the war and the years since. Wade knew where the pistol was. There used to be 2 of them, but Bo had traded it, and a samurai sword his father had smuggled off a ship down one leg of his pants for a 1/4 pound of dope years ago. Wade knew where the other one was. He'd cleaned almost all of the cosmoline off of it one summer and stashed it in a tool chest down in the basement. His father had some old ball ammo too. He dug the weapon out and loaded the magazine. He went back upstairs and out to his car. Back on the highway, he planned what he was going to do. He would go in through the front door and he would shoot them all. He would just walk in and tell them that he had immigrants in his family, and this is how the Irish branch of his family saw fit to deal with them. Then he would shoot all of them, except maybe Mike. Bang, bang. The ride out seemed longer than the ride back had been. He had the .45 tucked into the waistband of his pants. It had been really cold at first, but it was starting to warm up next to his skin. When he turned to look over his shoulder before changing lanes, it would stab into his testicles at an angle. He finally found the exit and located the turns he'd made with Mike. It was all a question of will. If you had the will, you could achieve anything. He'd had enough of being called a piece of shit. It was an act of will. Observing the tattered remnants of his once proud army, he pulled them together with nothing more than the force of his inexorable will. He turned off his headlights and cut the engine as he rolled up next to the house. It looked like the same lights were on. Everything looked the same. He chambered around and engaged the safety, and then stuck the gun back into his belt. He got out of the car and left the door open. He walked up to the house. His heart began to beat very quickly. He got up to the door and saw it was closed. He moved back a bit and kicked it next to the knob with all of his strength. The wood splintered and the door flew open. He jumped in and swept the room with his gun. There were beer cans everywhere. It was a sort of little living room. There was one old sofa and a chipped coffee table. Sound and light came from a little black and white television balanced atop a sagging cardboard box. There was only one person in the room, a skinny little kid with a shaved head. He looked like he was about 15. He looked at Wade and just froze. He was eating a bowl of cereal. The box was on the table. Cocoa Puffs. He had the bowl in one hand and a spoon in the other. Most of the milk and cereal was in his lap. "Where are they?" "Huh?" "Where are they, asshole?" They left." "Where did they go?" "I don't know, man. I swear I don't know." Wade recognized his face. He'd been one of the ones at the back shouting. He looked at the TV. It was an old movie. Cannons and uniformed horsemen. The smoke of the battlefield. Wade looked at the kid again. He still had the bowl of cereal frozen in his hand. He was holding the spoon like it was garlic, like it was a cross. "When will they be back?" "I don't know, man. I swear they didn't tell me." "I'll be back in a while." Wade walked back out to his car. He started it up and drove off. He decided to stop and wait at the Waffle House he'd stopped at earlier. He parked and went inside, sitting down at the same table. The waitress was still there. Her hair was still dirty. She walked up to him. "You was just in here a while ago, weren't you?" "Yeah." "Honey, you look peaked. You want another glass of milk?" She smiled at him. "Could I have a cup of coffee, please?" Wade didn't feel as angry anymore. He wasn't sure how he felt. He drank his coffee and played one of those IQ games on the triangular piece of wood with the little plastic pegs. There were 3 pegs left when he was done. He scored average. He realized that the round was still chambered and the gun in his pants was aimed at the inside of his thigh. He couldn't remember if he'd left the safety on or not. He got up and went to the bathroom and checked. It was on. He came back to the table and sat there for a while. There was a crowd of high school students on the far side of the restaurant at one of the other tables. 2 girls and 3 boys, all jammed in. One of the boys in a letterman's jacket kept trying to pinch one of the girls' breasts. The other girl saw Wade watching them, and she turned back to her group. "Stop it, y'all. God, people are looking." Wade left the money and a tip on the table and went back out to his car. He drove back to the house. Everything looked the same. He opened his car door and closed it and walked up to the house. The door was half open. The whole area around the lock on both the door and the frame shattered. He took out the gun again. He walked in. The kid was still sitting on the sofa, but he had moved over. The area where he had been sitting was a pile of milk-soaked newspaper. The bowl and the spoon were sitting on the floor. The TV was still on. The kid looked up at him. "Man, they didn't come back." "When are they coming back?" "I told you, man, I don't know. I swear." Wade suddenly realized how he felt. He felt like shit again. He turned around to leave, tucking the gun into his waistband. He heard the voice of the kid behind him. "Hey, listen, do you have a cigarette?" Wade gave him a cigarette and left.